All right, this is Dan Meehan for MMA Manifesto, and today we have James Yang, who makes his official MMA debut against Roel Rosauro on the stacked One Revolution card on September 24th. James, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
No worries, well, thanks for stopping by. Now, I had a bit of a tip-off that you might have trained at a Shaolin temple in the past. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you found your way there?
Sure. Yeah, I guess the first time I've ever walked into a martial arts school, I was maybe around 11 years old. Prior to that, I was always, wanting to do martial arts. My grandma would take me to Chinatown in Seattle and watch lion dance, and I was like captivated by them, and I always wanted to join them. And then through a family connection, I was able to join this team. I heard about this guy who was training some people in a garage, and it was in Chinatown. And I was the only kid there. It wasn't like a set class or anything. It was just like guys getting together and training. And I was able to go in there and get some training with them. And the guys were like, hardened dudes. Some guys were like security guard, work security at night. Some guys were, his Kyokushin karate background, or as an amateur, ex-military amateur Golden Glove boxer there. It was just a bunch of guys, a bunch of OGs basically, that kind of groomed me in the lion dance game, and performing around Seattle. And then when I was after I graduated high school, I was still 17. I was young for my graduation year, but I moved over to China to do a Shaolin Academy. And originally the plan was to stay there for 6 months and then come home and go college and do all that. And I ended up staying there in China for 4 years altogether. And I stayed at that academy for 3 years. I got to perform with the demo team, the performance team. And as a foreigner, that's like a huge opportunity. So I just went with it, man. I got to travel around China. I got to travel around Asia. And it was that moment, that time really shaped me to become the man I am today.
That is literally like something out of a movie right there. So, but yeah, so how much of an influence does that have now? Like, how much of that actually sort of translates into MMA these days?
Yeah, I think more about, the mental aspect of it. I had to live in pretty rough conditions. It was like rural China, and we're out in the farmlands. Like, I think the closest city was an hour away. And that city at that time, I think now it's more developed, but at that time it was like '07, '08, right before the Olympics. And it was like a totally different China, like compared to where it is now. Like when I was there, by the time I left, I could just saw a huge transition, and the whole country just changed. It started beginning to change. A lot more money was coming in, foreigners were coming in, a lot more investments, and it was just becoming more open to. But yeah, when I was there, it was still pretty rough area, and so I think all it together, it really made me who I am as far as a martial artist. Like it had a big effect as being like fluid and just had just becoming more fluid in my body and comfortable in my body, and having control, and just putting myself in that environment was very mentally challenging. I watched grown men crack and break under those times. So I mean, we're subjected to the weather, we're subjected to different swarms of insects and just all kinds of rough things, I guess. But for me, I love that. That was nothing for me. And yeah, it played a big role in where I am at now, for sure.
Yep. And so nowadays you're obviously a close training partner of Demetrious Johnson. So how did you find your way there, and what's it like to share the mats with Mighty Mouse?
Well, yeah. So when I finished my training in China, I was, I stayed 3 years at Shaolin Academy, and I went my fourth year. I stayed in Beijing at a sports school academy where Jet Li graduated from. Is where like the Beijing Wushu team trains, and a lot of professional sport teams at Beijing train. And yeah, while I was there, I was working, I was training, and I was like, man, what am I gonna do when I go back to Seattle? I don't want to not train. I don't want to lose all these years I've been putting in. And so when I came back to America, I started working in aerospace and be doing like UPS package handling and all these like odd jobs. I found this school called Northwest Wushu. It's in Chinatown as well, in another garage. And I started teaching out of there and training out of there. And I even started teaching the UW, that was like the University of Washington. They had a Wushu team there as well. And I also started training those guys and working with them. And I began competing in wushu tournaments for like representing the USA and at world's international tournaments. And then from then I started competing, I started working, performing. I was like, man, I'm putting all these hours at these jobs and I'm spending like 4 hours in traffic alone, just wasting my day. I felt like that part of the day was just being wasted, you know? And I just made that decision to just teach full time and compete. And I got to a point where I was like plateauing in my skill sets and I just wanted to learn more. And that kind of ultimately led me to AMC Kickboxing and Pancration. And I've been there now for about 7 years. I became a coach there and I began fighting for them. And yeah, just very lucky and fortunate that everything worked out there because, you know, you can go to those gyms and you never know how it's going to turn out, you know. And I had to save money to go there, and it just turned out the chemistry that between all of us just kind of, you know, worked out. You know, we like each other a lot. We trained together very well. And yeah, that's how we kind of formed our brotherhood.
And you've obviously since had the 6 amateur fights, the last of which was in 2018. So where have you been for the last 3 years?
Yeah, well, so the Tapology kind of got it wrong. Everyone's been saying that, but it's actually, so I had 7-0 MMA fights in the local area, and then I had a Muay Thai fight, and then I had 2 grappling matches because I couldn't find a fight. It was like submission only inside the cage, and so altogether I had a 10-0 record since I've been fighting for AMC Kickboxing and Pancration. And then for the last couple of years, yeah, I had all this momentum building up. And I was gonna go to One Warrior Series and start fighting there. And then, you know, COVID happened, and then everything got shut down. And I got kind of just, you know, there's a lot of uncertainty in that time whether it was ever gonna happen. Who knew it was gonna happen? So I just kind of locked myself away. I just thought to myself, you know, this is like a ultimate test from the universe of how bad you want it. And so I just locked myself away and just kept training, and stayed focused and never stopped working. And now we're finally here.
Yeah, and there you go. Once again, Tapology's let me down there on my research. So you'd think I'd know better by now. It's happened that many times. But anyway,
don't worry.
So yeah, I guess why now then? Sort of what's brought you to the professional ranks? How's this come about?
I mean, this is the time. I've been waiting for this for a long time. I'm ready for a long time. I'm ready to go. In my life as a martial artist, you know, this is my prime time to fight, compete, and that's what I want to do. You know, that's all I want to do right now is compete and go for the belt, make as much money as I can doing it. And I don't want to waste my time anymore and not compete because, you know, I don't want to get to a point in my life and think back like, man, what if I gave it a shot? You know, I don't want to have that regret. I want to go for it full on. I've been working for years and years and years and years, my whole life for this. So that was ultimately the decision. And, you know, I trust my coach as well. He made the decision and he believes it's time for to go. And yeah, we're here.
So you're going to be looking to string together some back-to-back fights over the next sort of couple of years?
That's what I love to do. Just stay active and continue fighting and staying busy.
So what's the ultimate goal then? Where do you want to get to in your career now that you're going to have a run at it?
Yeah, man, world champion. I mean, that's if you're in the fight game, that's what else is there to go for? I mean, you have to go for that. If you're not thinking that, then what's the point? You know, title is all I want.
That's true. And sort of like how far off do you feel like a goal like that might be for someone like you? Like you've obviously been in the game for a while. You've got quite a lot of experience in terms of training and all that sort of stuff. So do you see yourself sort of going on a fast track towards the title, or sort of how far off do you feel something like that might be?
Yeah, I mean, that really depends just on my performances. That's all it really depends on. If it's not exciting, if I'm not putting people away in decisive fashion, then what's the point? You know, yeah, I have to be doing that. I have to live up to my end of the job, and that is to do that, to put people away every time I go out and step out and compete. You know, fans are, you know, paying their good hard-earned money, spending their time to watch us compete. I have to make it exciting, make it memorable for sure.
Yeah, so speaking of the fans sort of paying their hard-earned money, you know, being your pro debut, most people probably haven't seen you fight before. So what can viewers expect once you step in there?
Is violence, brutal violence. That's all I'm bringing in.
Beautiful. And of course, the opponent this time out is Roel Rosauro, who has 8 professional fights to his name, 3 of which are in one championship. So Yeah, they haven't gone easy on you for the first one out, have they?
I don't want that either. I mean, he's a killer. I don't think there's any easy fights in one either. Everyone's a killer out here. So, yeah, I mean, I just whoever they sign, give me a contract to sign. It's like a bounty, and I got to go collect. That's it.
And has Mighty Mouse been in camp with you for this one?
He has been. Yeah, he's actually in my corner too. He's here right now. He's not he has his own room, but yeah, he's here. And yeah, he's always been in my corner from all my amateur fights. And I've been in his corners for the last couple of years now from all of his one fights and a few of his UFC fights back in the day. So yeah, man, we just keep it going.
And what are you expecting from Rosauro on fight night? How do you feel you guys match up?
Yeah, I expect him to try to take my head off. That's what I'm thinking. He's gonna try to kick my face off, punch my head in, and that's what I'm trying to do to him. So I think that's what everyone's trying to do, and that's the fight game.
Are you the type to watch tape? I mean, like, forgive my ignorance, but being from a kung fu background, I feel like you're more likely to want to go out there and sort of be adaptable. Do you watch tape before?
Of course, I always want to look to adapt, but yeah, I do it with a strategy and strategic mind. We looked at some videos of him in the beginning of camp, and looked at some tendencies, but I don't try to dwell on my opponent and what he does, because you look at a video and you watch what they do, and then they come to the ring and it comes fight time, they're totally different. They could surprise you, and that could really throw your head off into a loop. So I don't try to dwell on it too much. You just you watch the video in the beginning of camp, see what the tendencies are, and then from there you just focus on what you need to improve on and work on, and just go out and fight.
Yep, and we know that One Championship do things a little bit differently with the weigh-ins and the hydration tests and all that sort of stuff. So presumably that's a little bit different to what you did in your amateur career. So what does fight week look like in terms of making weight and sort of passing those hydration tests? What do you have to do?
Yeah, this is my first time doing it, so I feel like it's a lot better and safer than it is than cutting the 4 to 45, because my last cut I had, it's not that I can't do it, but the last cut I had, I remember I was in the tub, I could see my heart beating in my chest. You know what I mean? And that's probably the most dangerous aspect of the fight game is, who knows what everlasting implications that could put on our bodies, on our organs and our brains and everything. And there's also, you lose out as fans. Maybe the durability of fighters go down when you cut extensive weight, right? You don't get as good fights. So yeah, I think that what one does with the weight cutting is innovative, and I think more organizations need to do it, because it's just ultimately safer for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're opening up a stacked card at One Revolution. What are your predictions for the rest of the card?
Man, it's an incredible card, I'll tell you that. I mean, every fight in that card is, fight of the night material. You got ex champions fighting, great striking matchups, and you got 3 title fights to finish the card off. And it's just gonna be an unbelievable card, man. It's an honor to be part of it, and be part of it. As my first fight to be on this card is incredible, it's historic, and I'm just happy to be part of it, be here and be part of it.
You feel like opening the show, there's a little bit of pressure to open up with a bang. Like, do you feel a bit of extra urgency, for when you get in there, or is it, do you feel like it's, I guess a lesser slot on the card?
Yeah, no, it's the same as any fight. You always want to go out there and press. So whether it's the first fight, the middle fight, the last fight, you have to go out and put in the best show you possibly can. So me coming out as the first fight, I definitely want to have an exciting start to the card. But ultimately, I think the whole card holds water. It holds its own weight. Everyone's going to be exciting fight. So you stay tuned from the beginning to the end, and every fight is going to be exciting.
Yep, and speaking again of Mighty Mouse, has of course just been announced that he's taking on Rodtang in a mixed rules bout later in the year. Now, I for one don't fully understand how it's going to work, but how do you see that one going down?
Yeah, so I think it's like first round is Muay Thai, then MMA, then Muay Thai and MMA in the 3-minute rounds, right? So I mean, I think it's a great. I mean, in modern MMA, we haven't had this in a very, we have never done this. It's incredible. I mean, back in the day, we had like Inoki versus Muhammad Ali and like a boxing wrestling ring in Japan, and there's some crossover fights before, and I'm a huge fan of it. I think it's incredible. Fans are gonna love that, and that's what it's about. This is, again, they're innovating the game in another way. I think we're going to see more fights like this in the future, more super fights like this, because Rodtang is the Terminator. He's a killer. He can eat so many shots. And he's like over 300 fights, 247 wins or something. It's incredible, and obviously DJ is one of the greatest GOATs of MMA of all time. So it's just going to be an incredible clash of two warriors. So I'm very excited for that fight.
Absolutely. And as someone who sees Mighty Mouse in the gym sort of day in, day out, how do you think he'll fare under Muay Thai rules against Rodtang?
Yeah, well, I don't want to be biased, but obviously I think my boy's gonna do great. He's gonna do an excellent job. So, if Rodtang does what he normally does and just pushes forward, I think that's gonna work in the DJ's favor because he's gonna have good footwork. He's gonna be able to move around, and when it comes to the MMA round, that's when it'll be some trouble for Rodtang. I feel because the ground game is just gonna be a whole nother world that I don't think he's ready for.
Absolutely. And yeah, James, before I let you go, do you have any sponsors or anyone you'd like to shout out? I'll hand the reins over to you.
Just my family and friends, baby. That's it. My teammates back home, AC Kickboxing and Pancration, and Charlie's Combat Club. Much love to everyone for helping me train, get ready for this fight, and I'm ready to go perform.
James, thank you so much for stopping by, and all the best at One Revolution.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it a lot. Thanks for